Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every month we deep dive into a new aspect of cinema. Whether it's a director, actor, genre, or franchise, we always have fun at the Film Club. And this month, we're talking about romantic comedies, and this week we are talking about...
Annie Hall.
Yes, Annie Hall, directed by and starring Woody Allen and Diane Keaton, and a very beloved romantic comedy, I would say.
Yeah, it's a good, dry, sarcastic comedy.
Yeah, this comes out in 1977. Famously, it beats Star Wars for Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the movie that kind of breaks Woody Allen into the mainstream. This is his, everybody considers this his breakthrough. It's the movie that is the most referenced out of his filmography. It's also the romantic comedy that a lot of New York-based romantic comedies steal from.
Yeah, and Diane Keaton also started, a trend with her fashion in this film.
Yeah, and, anything with Diane Keaton in it, it's probably going to be at least pretty good.
It's usually a banger.
At least from the 70s. But yeah, so we're getting to talk about Annie Hall. Before we get in, I guess, disclaimer, we do acknowledge Woody Allen is a creep and probably a scumbag.
Yeah.
So
we're strictly talking about his work, not the man.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to talk about him as a director, but,
Yeah.
Devil his due, he made a pretty good movie.
And he's made a lot of good movies, and I think that's the struggle with art, because, this artist is a scumbag, but his artwork is great. He's done so many good movies, and it's kind of a fine line to walk between real life and imagination in films.
It's the same thing with, the Polanski discussion.
Yeah.
But let us not digress for too long. What are your thoughts on Annie Hall after your first time viewing?
Yeah, because I've seen clips of this movie, but I've never seen the movie in its entirety. And it wasn't what I expected to be, and I ended up really liking the movie.
What were you expecting it to be?
You imagine, it's gonna be this epic love story, he's gonna lose the girl but get her again in the end. And we kind of see, he somewhat gets her, but they're kind of in a better place. He accepts that, she didn't take the proposal, spoiler, for a 45-year-old movie. But, yeah, I ended up really enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have to really worry too much about spoiling this movie, because so many romantic comedies of this, I guess, of the eras that come after, take a lot of cues from this.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about the movie, because I've seen it before, and I really enjoyed it beforehand, but I didn't know anything about Woody Allen.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this guy, he made a bunch of good movies, so me watch a bunch of good movies.
Yeah.
So I watched this, Manhattan, Blue Jasmine. I think I saw Midnight in Paris. I know that's a movie you really like.
Yeah, I don't think you've seen it. I've been campaigning for you to watch this movie for almost 10 years now.
Give it time.
Yeah, we're almost there.
But
Play It, Sam was another good movie.
yeah, because he's a very prolific director.
Yeah.
Because I think for a while he was a movie a year for 30 years or 20 years, something like that. He has a lot of output.
Yeah.
But I guess before we get too far into it, I do have the back of the box. The actual
We do.
back of the box here.
We sprung for the money to have an actual back of box.
Feels good.
It does.
So let me read this puppy off. This is what the movie's basically about. Alvy Singer is one of Manhattan's most brilliant comedians, but when it comes to romance, his delivery needs a little work. Introduced by his best friend Rob, Alvy falls in love with the ditzy but delightful nightclub singer Annie Hall. When his own insecurities sabotage the affair, Annie is forced to leave Alvy for a new life and lover in Los Angeles. Knowing he may have lost Annie forever, Alvy willingly goes to any lengths, even driving LA freeways, to recapture the only thing that ever mattered: true love. That is far more a concise plot than this movie actually gives us. Because this movie, I'm not trying to be mean, is kind of a mess.
Yeah. But I think that's just kind of a play on life. Life is a mess. And romance, love, it gets messy. And that's why it's kind of so confusing that we jump around a lot and we see, real time, and then we jump, back to earlier, we jump to the future, so it's like, you're kind of trying to plug in all these chords with, wait, are we on this timeline? Are we on that timeline?
Yeah, because the movie jumps around quite often, and even the movie starts weird, because it starts with...
a monologue.
Yeah, which is also really weird. It starts with Alvy giving us a straight monologue about his thoughts on love and on himself, and that's kind of the whole movie. It's his thoughts on love and himself. And we're seeing the relationship with Annie at its end. Like, they're already kind of sick of each other, they're already having problems, and the movie then flashes back to Alvy's, like, previous relationships and how they went bad in his life.
And then we go further back to his childhood.
Yeah, and the movie is, like, the first half is, this is how the relationship fell apart, and then the second half is, oh, this is where they got together, and how the relationship got so good, and then the ending of the movie is those two moments kind of crashing into each other, and them after this relationship. It's really weird. I mean, I call it messy because of how it's structured so oddly, and it's not just that it's non-linear, it's also very rapid-paced.
Yeah. It's
kind of how Alvy or Woody Allen talks. Very snappy. We're just getting to the point, boys. Yada, yada, yada. And very rambly.
I mean, going on with the fast pace of this movie's only 93 minutes.
Yes.
And this is the second shortest film to win Best Oscar Picture.
Also, the comedies need to be like a tight 90. It is hard to keep me involved in a 2+ hour comedy. That's a little much.
Well, I mean, we've also kind of figured that out podcast-wise. It's kind of hard to break down a comedy and explore the different avenues that it takes you on, because a lot of them, it's just...
They're not very deep thematically for you to chew on.
Yeah, but comedies like The Apartment, Annie Hall, there's a lot of substance there and a lot of fat to chew on.
Yeah.
And, we have the seriousness of these two characters. They want to work, but they don't really work. And just the complexity of Alvy with, he is... What's the tagline of the movie? A nervous romance, or
a neurotic romance or something? I don't know. It's not on the front of the box.
It's on IMDb. It's like a nervous romance. And that's what you get from him, where it's just... basically Chicken Little, and oh no, the sky's gonna fall in on us.
The relationship's falling apart.
Yeah.
How can I help myself? And it's kind of the thing, because the movie in and of itself, I think, is about this guy who is kind of self-sabotaging his own romantic life.
Yeah.
Because there's no part in this where I think Alvy is very sympathetic. Most of the time I see Alvy as just on this side of being a total prick.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I get it. You're very, neurotic and picky, but God, dude, take a chill pill. Just calm down. You don't need to go see a 4-hour Holocaust documentary every Saturday when you can't just go to the matinee. That cannot be your fallback date.
Okay, so... we have to start there, because that's in the beginning of the movie. We see them going on this date. He's waiting for Annie to show up to the theater. She's late. They get in line and they talk to the woman that's selling the tickets. And she goes, oh, the movie started 2 minutes ago. And he starts going off, oh my god, the movie is already done. We are so late. And Annie's like, it's only 2 minutes. The opening credits probably just stopped, or the music just stopped. And he's... no, it's already done. Why am I going to see a completed film? And I'm like...
I completely agree with the man.
I'm like, why is this Dean? Why is this, our relationship?
I completely agree with the man. Once the movie has started, it has started, alright? You need to be enveloped in the entirety of the runtime, the entirety of the filmmaker's process. It's the vision. I respect that idea.
This is even at home with DVDs, where Dean's like, yeah... I know this is a DVD where I can pause it at my own leisure. I can't stop the film. It may be a 5-hour film, but I can't stop the film.
I watched Lawrence of Arabia in one sitting. Same with, Once Upon a Time in America.
What was that movie you watched recently? The 5-hour one or the 4-hour one?
Fanny and Alexander. It was the TV edit, which is about 5.5... It's like a mini-series of the TV edit.
And you were like, I finally had a spare 5 hours to devote to this film, and...
It's hard to get an extra 5 hours to watch Bergman. I'm sorry, all right? It's hard.
Or you just pause it and you come back to it where you could, fill up the time.
It's literally a mini-series, so it has, like, breaks where the episodes end. And I'm like, no. Those are intermissions. Those are intermissions that Bergman is so graciously giving me to go use the bathroom. But, back to Annie Hall. But yeah, the beginning of the movie is him kind of... And this is where we get a lot of the humor. Because this opening is... him and Diane Keaton, they're waiting in line to go see this, German, Holocaust documentary, and the guy behind them won't shut up. He is talking, I believe, exactly how I talk when people overhear me about, pretentious art house movies. And then Woody Allen is like, you shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. And the guy's like, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I teach this guy. And he's like, well, I have this guy over here, and just walks off camera and pulls, like, the expert on screen, and the guy's like, you know nothing of my work. How somebody allows you to teach is beyond me. And I'm like, well, that's like a fucking Family Guy gag.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about? I'm gonna pull the exact right thing off screen into frame to now, like, destroy you, and that's the punchline.
Yeah, and this is why I felt like this movie felt so familiar, because a lot of things have been spoofed and paid homage to from this film.
Yeah.
Like Family Guy. That 70s show in their first season, they do... a
lot of cutaway gags.
Well, not only that, but they actually do a riff on one of the episodes of Annie Hall, where Eric and his mom, they go to see the movie together, and you get different, things where, they're like, Mahjong, what is Mahjong? Or the joke about, yeah, my jaw's killing me, it'll feel better, hopefully it'll feel better soon. But even
I like that joke. That's a good joke.
I figured you would. But even the removed scene when they're attempting to have sex, and he's telling her, he's like, she leaves her body and she goes, and she's like, can you pass me my drawing pad? And he goes, this is what I call you being removed. And that's what Eric and Donna do. They're like making out, and she leaves her body, and she's like, hey, do you know if I left my chemistry book here? I'm just gonna work on some homework. And Eric's like, this is what I call removed. You're not here in the moment with me. And she's just, she's got homework on the brain.
It's really funny because the movie, again, for, this is 77, is doing a pretty frank discussion on the neurotic nature of this man's sex life. And also I think it is a very funny showing of, like the nature of relationships, sexual relationships, how he is like, oh, we are hardly having sex anymore, only barely 3 times a week. And she's like, it's constant. It's 3 times a week. Oh, he thinks I'm a mule. And it's fucking hilarious.
I mean, I love when they're breaking it down, and he talks about his first wife.
Yes.
And they're like, wasn't it you that was self-sabotaging, where, you were bringing conspiracies into the bedroom and the wife's trying to have sex with you?
I can't explain it. Like, why would you change the direction on the day of his parade at Daily Plaza? I don't understand it. Like, there has to be somebody else other than Book Depository. Is a shooter on the grassy knoll? I don't know. Oswald could not have been alone.
I don't expect him to be, a master marksman, but he had to be a good shot. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is Dean. This was, last year when they released some of the Kennedy files?
Okay.
And my God, Dean went to work. He was like, I gotta read every last page of these files.
Because, remember, during the dark times of COVID, when we couldn't go outside?
Yes.
I became one of those people who was obsessed with, like, conspiracy theories, but I wasn't one of those flat earther normies. No. I was a classics man. I deep dive into, like, JFK assassination.
Uh-huh.
And that was, like, my fucking, like, 3-week obsession was deep diving into Kennedy assassination, like, documentaries and random, like, articles and shit. And it was, like, that came up, and I was like, man, I've had that conversation with Becky before. We've been at dinner, and she's trying to talk to me about, like, oh, where should we go for our anniversary? And I'm like, so Jack Ruby had to have known somebody to let him in. That's basically confirmed at this point. But did the person who let him in, were they in? Did they know he had a gun on him? Like, what was going on here? And Becky's like, can we please just have a nice dinner? We don't need to solve the Kennedy assassination over brunch.
The server would just like to take your order, and you're over here. It doesn't make sense. Why would they shoot Oswald the next day?
Okay, but the server at Denny's though was actually kind of into it because he participated in the conversation for at least 30 seconds before he walked away in disgust.
I don't think I was there for that. This must have happened. Does this happen every time you go to a restaurant?
Back to Annie Hall.
Wow.
Wow,
we're learning a lot about Dean today.
Back to Annie Hall. But that's the thing. The nature of the comedy of this movie is very Woody Allen. It's very... I don't even know how to describe it. It works. It's pretty dry. It's a little witty.
You have those, long cutaways where it's just... You hear his voice, and it's like, well, where is he? And it's like, oh, he's way off in the distance. Okay, he'll be here in about 5 minutes. So we're basically just looking at scenery until he finally comes into the scene and we move along with him.
Those long master shots of him kind of walking with Rob through New York City.
And that's pretty much a staple of his filming style, where we have the actors in the movie just walking.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it feel a lot more real than it's just, two people out for a walk. I mean,
he also lives in New York, and New York is a walking city.
Yeah.
And also, people have said it is impossible to shoot New York without making a reference to Woody Allen, because he shot so much of New York, and he loves setting his movies in New York. There's no one that has shot the Golden Gate Bridge in a better way than Woody Allen, because he shot it from 50 different angles over 50 years. But yeah, the other thing about it though
you mean the Brooklyn Bridge?
Brooklyn Bridge. I don't know what coast I'm on.
Golden Gate is ours.
I don't know what coast I'm on. But the thing is though that's interesting about how the movie's shot is you know who the cinematographer is?
I don't.
Gordon Willis.
Okay, what other films has he done?
The Godfather.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of funny when Diane Keaton shows up to the theater late, and he's like, why are you so late? I was being harassed by cast members of The Godfather.
Yeah.
And he's saying that to a cast member of The Godfather,
yeah.
And the cinematographer worked on The Godfather. And it's like this feels so wildly different how it's shot, and it's also a thing where it really is fascinating to see how this movie looks compared to movies he made beforehand, because this is his... He even acknowledges that this is him stepping up as a director.
Mm-hmm.
He learned so much more about visual storytelling making this movie from Gordon Willis.
That's interesting. Yeah, because you know what a Woody Allen movie looks like.
Yeah.
It has a certain look, a certain style. And
he's very obsessed with the cities he's in. There's a lot of long takes, a lot of masters, not a lot of snappy close-ups.
Yeah, but that's wild. I did not pick up that that's the same cinematographer. These are very vastly different movies, Godfather and Annie Hall, but...
you also gotta think about it. Diane Keaton gets to be in The Godfather, Godfather 2, and then Woody Allen gets her for Annie Hall, and it's a thing where Diane Keaton shows her range, because in The Godfather, she doesn't have a lot to work with. We can just be honest there. It is not focused on her.
No.
It's focused on, the Corleone family. Yeah,
and just, how she was so close with Michael, and, once he starts to step into this role as the Godfather, it's, I love you, I married you, but you gotta stay way over here. You can't be involved in any of this.
And in this, she steals the show.
Yes.
I really feel like, Woody Allen made this, and this is kind of his movie. He's the main character, he wrote it, he directed it, he's, starring in it. He is everything, that is Alvy.
Yeah.
And then he's also playing opposite Diane Keaton, who is by far more charming and lovable, and I really get behind Diane Keaton's performance a lot more than Woody Allen's. Did you feel the same way?
Oh, definitely. Alvy is supposed to drive you crazy.
Yeah.
It is just, there are so many bad things going on all the time in his world that's just gonna drive anybody crazy. But you get Diane Keaton, where she's so bubbly and full of life and willing to try, new things. Maybe I'll try a photography class. Maybe I'll,
very la-di-da,
la-di-da. And the fact that that's a first time that quote or saying is in a film is wild.
I feel that's one of those, because I think a lot of movies like this get said as, oh, this is the first time it was seen in all of cinema. And I feel like No, this is like the popular one that people like remember. Because I can't imagine La Di Da wasn't set in like a 1930s comedy.
Whenever the phrase was come up with.
Yeah, probably.
Or discovered.
Discovered.
This was the movie.
They walked through the land of words and they discovered La Di Da hidden up in the trees. They discovered it.
I would go with that, yeah.
You would go with that?
Yeah.
There's a nice La Di Da tree.
Yeah.
No.
A quote tree.
A quote tree. Ooh, I wonder what grows on a quote tree.
Lots of good quotes.
Well, let's play it again here. Boo. So, anyhow.
Yes.
But it is a thing, you know, I feel like Diane Keaton steals the show, but the movie is stacked with actors that would later go on to be, like, giant.
6 horror actors. That's how they kind of phrased it, because these actors have been in horror movies. They kind of got their first start, their official starts in horror movies.
Or they get really well known for horror movies later on.
Yeah, so we have Sigourney Weaver. Alien, and this was also her first screen debut.
Yeah, and she is in one shot at almost the very end of the movie.
And you have to be paying attention to make sure you don't miss her.
Yeah, because it is like a young Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because I think 2 years after this, she's in Alien. But it's like a thing where, you know, Alvy and Diane have like, Alvy and Annie have broken up, and it's like, oh, it's all gone. And Sigourney Weaver, his like rebound girl.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to do the same lobster gag, and she's like, "Well, was that supposed to be funny? Like, are you trying to make a joke right now? I don't get it." You know.
I think before we go on the list of the other actors that were in this film, we got to talk about the lobster scene.
Yeah, is that the best scene in the movie, or is that like the best cutesy romance scene in the movie?
I think it's kind of confusing because why are they cooking so many lobsters for the two of them?
Lobster's delicious.
It is, but I mean, that's a lot of lobster for 2 people.
I think what's more funny is they're like, oh, I can't kill a lobster, and it's obviously a dead lobster or a fake lobster because that thing ain't moving.
No, I think my favorite part of that is, they're surrounded by the lobsters. One, how are they surrounded by the lobsters? I want to know what series of events happened.
Did he let them loose on the floor? Also, when he sees the Sigourney Weaver scene, does he do it again to try and recapture? And is this his move? Does for every woman he meets, does he have a lobster moment where he throws lobsters on the ground and tries to get the whole cutesy thing?
I mean, I feel like that would be very expensive to do that move every time with a new girl, but I think he's, really missing Annie, and it's like, him with this self-sabotaging, I'm gonna rewrite the past, and I'm gonna try to do these things over again so I feel like I have Annie even though I don't.
Mm.
But my favorite part of the lobster scene, is when he yells at her to call the police when the lobsters are just surrounding them. I don't know why, but it was just, the seriousness of that moment of him, call the police! And it was just like, it's lobsters, you're okay.
I thought your favorite was gonna be when she calls Alvy with the, there's a giant spider in my bathroom. And he's like, a giant spider? What's wrong with you? Look, let me take care of this. You got a magazine? All right, Jesus, I can't believe you're doing this. Walks in, walks right out. It's like, you got a big old spider. I need something bigger than this. All right, you were not lying. That is a large spider, and there are 2 of them.
Oh, it made me laugh, but it made me think of Randy more than anything. Because,
He's terrified of spiders?
Yes, and I've killed my fair share of big spiders. I killed one a couple of weeks ago, scared the crap out of me, but I could do the job. I know that Randy calls you many a times to kill the spiders for him.
It happens,
So I was like, yeah, I could picture that, and I could picture you being kind of like Alvy, a bull in a china shop, just knocking everything over in the bathroom and destroying the bathroom to kill these 2 spiders.
I'm nothing like Alfie in real life, I swear. I just play it for the camera.
Really, Bergman and Fellini?
But
going
what else
back...
do I got written here in my notes?
This movie hit a little too close to home, didn't it?
It's fine.
But yeah, we were talking about, before the lobster scene, Sigourney Weaver. This was her first screen debut. We also had Jeff Goldblum in this movie.
What's my mantra?
Yeah. We had Carol Kane.
Oh, yeah. She's Alvy's first wife.
Yeah, Alvy's first wife, and she's also in Scrooged.
Oh, yeah.
She's the Ghost of Christmas Future?
Were you about to say Ghost of Christmas Surprise?
No, I was going to say past.
neither of those started with an S, and you were about to say something with an S.
I don't know.
Okay.
I was gonna say something, but yeah, she's in Scrooge. She's in When a Stranger Calls. Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Walken, the Dead Zone,
which has a great like a 2-scene gag, because Alvy is up in wherever Long Island to meet her parents.
The Norman Rockwell family?
The Norman Rockwell family. And he goes in and he sees Christopher Walken sitting in his orphan bedroom. That's the only way I can describe it. And he's like, Alvy, can I tell you something? You know, sometimes I drive and I really want to just turn my car into the headlights, crash. I visualize it, I can feel it. And Alvy says, well, you keep thinking that, I'm gonna go somewhere where there's sanity. And then the next day, he has to drive them to the airport in the rain. And, you know, he's driving. And Diane Keaton's there going, la-da-da-da-da-da-da. And Woody Allen is just staring bullets over at Christopher Walken, being like, I don't want to die tonight. Please, God, no. Please, God, no.
It's also raining. And just with the sheer look of fear on his face, it kind of reminded me of Psycho when she's driving in the rain. And I was just like, we just need the music to play over that scene. It would be perfect.
That's probably what it is. One, it's a visual reference to Hitchcock's Psycho. And two, it's a great silent gag.
Yeah.
Because we know, why this is, like, so funny. Diane Keaton, no idea. Christopher Walken is just playing a straight scene. Mm-hmm. And then you have Woody Allen mugging like the schmuck he is in this movie. And it's just so interesting because the movie is really, really funny.
Yeah.
It's the thing, you know, it's a romantic comedy. It's definitely a comedy. How's the romance feel for you?
Well, I mean, the romance...
Does it feel diluted because it's chopped up so much and so, like, non-linearly, non-sequential?
A little bit. It's kind of hard to, you know, really hold on to them as a couple because we see them in so many different phases of their relationship. Oh, they're just meeting. Oh no, now they're broken up. Oh, they can't stand each other. So it's kind of
and now they're madly in love and this and that. We're going through all these highs and lows and we don't know the true arc. It's all filtered through Alvy, who we can say at best is an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, because, you know, they're sweet together when they're in love. And I mean, they're really funny when they can't stand each other. So it's just kind of like, yeah, I want to root for them, but no, I also kind of like seeing them fight because you get some, you know, some good content out of it.
Yeah. You got a lot of fun back and forth between Woody Allen and Diane Keaton.
Oh, definitely.
But what else did we want to hit on while we were here?
Well, we had one more actor that was on this film, you know, part of that 6, Shelley Duvall. And
it's really weird because she's in like one scene. And
she's got to be like in like 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, maybe even less. I mean, she's great because she's
in love with
the Hare Krishna or whatever. She is the definition of that one hippie chick you dated in college that you are so surprised you stayed together as long as you did.
Oh yeah.
She's like, oh yeah, you know, I just really like this. You know, I'm like into spiritualism. I'm not like religious though, but like Dylan just speaks to my soul though. Like, is Dylan God?
I think he is.
He might be, you know, but like not like a religious thing, not like a spiritual thing. Like she's that character.
And Alvy's just like, You want to come home?
Okay. We got to talk about that because, like, this is written by Woody Allen, and he is portraying Alvy, as like a schmuck, you know, like he's not very good with, you know, relationships, and he's, I hate myself, I can't be happy about anything, I am not a generally, like, easy person to get along with, but he's also portrayed as being able to just slay women left and right, and he's the funniest guy on the planet, and he is, like, famous and all this other stuff.
And he hides from the fame. People recognize him, and he's like, "No, please, that's not me. I'm this person." And it's like, no, he pulls so many women, and it's just this little, old-looking guy. And it's just like, really?
That's also the funny thing, because Woody Allen, in the movie, he makes a mention that, I'm going to be 40 soon, and that's a big number, that changes a man. And it's like, are you like 46 in this movie? Like,
No, I think he was actually 40 at the time of the making of this movie.
Right, okay, because it might be because a lot of, people look a little older or a little younger than they actually are. He is in the unfortunate camp of looking a little older than he actually is, because I pegged him as, like, are you sure you're not, like, 45, 46? Because that bald spot on the back of his head is not doing him any favors.
No, and I think he's probably always looked the same.
I've never seen a picture of a young Woody Allen that looked like...
a youthful guy.
Yeah. I mean, he looks in shape. Like, he's in shape in this.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, he's just one of these people that kind of looks on the older side.
Mm.
And, like you said, there's some people that are older and they have good genes and they look a lot younger.
The Paul Rudds of the world.
Exactly, yes. And it's just, no, not in this case.
Yeah. I just find it so funny. Like, we see him through the movie, and I'm like, God damn, Alvy, you are hitting above your weight class on some of these women. Jesus Christ.
I mean, Annie Hall.
Yeah, he's yeah. Well, granted, that's also real life. I think Woody Allen and Diane Keaton dated either right before the movie or right after the movie.
Yeah, I remember reading that somewhere. But, just to see how she's the one that kind of, falls for him first, and she's very, forward with, can you give me a ride home? Well, didn't you say you drove here? Yeah. Do you want a ride home? Sure. Do you want to come up to my apartment for a drink? I don't want to impose. No, it's okay. You want to come out here?
Annie Hall is really into neurotic, red-headed Jewish men from the Bronx.
I guess, she's got a type. He's it. I mean, she falls for Paul Simon later.
Which is another person who's in this movie. I'm like, fucking Paul Simon's in this? I think the last time I saw this had to have been 5 years ago, maybe more. And when I saw it, I was like, what the fuck? Why are there so many people in here? And I completely forgot about that. And then when I see it again, and I'm like, what the fuck? That's Jeff Goldblum, Paul Simon. How did Woody Allen pull all these people? And the answer is most of them weren't famous yet. But, like, what the hell?
And apparently had a lot of pull.
He had a lot of pull. He had a lot of game. He's fucking slaying it. And,
yes.
Sorry, I keep forgetting where the fuck I was going.
Kind of like this movie. Where are we going?
Exactly. And actually, that is kind of... Okay, wherever I was going, we'll forget that. Now we're going to this thing.
Okay.
Because I did mention at the top, it feels like a mess.
Yes.
And I was saying it feels like a mess because of the structure of it, because it is... It never feels like it was meant to be a story about this one romance and how Alvy kind of, like, screws it up. And I'm actually correct on this. So... I found this out.
Okay.
So when Woody Allen wrote the movie was originally going to be about this guy who can't experience joy or pleasure or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Alvy in this movie basically can't be happy. He thinks everybody's either miserable or horrible. He's like, life sucks.
He blames it on his parents.
Yeah, and he actually Woody Allen found that the movie evolved as he was making it, because he had the Annie Hall character come in, and as they're making the movie, he kind of like realizes, man, I really love Annie Hall, the character, and also he's kind of falling in love with Diane Keaton.
Yeah.
And in the end, he has like, I think, a 3-hour cut of this movie, and he, I don't know if that's like the real movie or if that was an assembly cut with all the footage.
Yeah. Because
there's a scene somewhere where he's in Madison Square Garden and he's about to like shoot a point from half court.
God.
And somebody's like, Alvy, why can't you do it? And he's like, I can't. Why not? Because if I make it, it'll be too wonderful. And that's the gag. And because the movie originally was about this guy who can't be happy.
Yeah.
And then with the movie, once it hits the editing bay, he changes a lot of it and realizes, oh no, it's a movie about this guy who found the love of his life, but he's found the love of his life a few times, and how he's kind of sabotaged it himself. And it turns into this movie about romance. And I think that's why the movie feels so awkward in places. And I know it sounds like I'm ragging on the movie. The movie's still a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, well-made mess. I say mess not in like, it's horrible.
No, I mean, we've seen some messy movies, but we're talking mess like
like a Baz Luhrmann movie. They're messes, but they're fun as hell.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like you're on an acid trip.
I describe Baz Luhrmann movies as doing lines of pixie sticks. Just doing rails of pixie sticks off of, the Wonka tables, alright?
And it's a fun ride.
It's a fun ride. Elvis was pretty good. Elvis was pretty good.
I need to finish it.
I'm gonna be real, you're watching it for Austin Butler. Like, Austin Butler kills in the Elvis movie.
Yeah.
The rest of it is like a lot of aesthetics and it's a lot of fun, but you're watching it for Austin Butler. He's killing it in that movie.
Yeah, and you have, like Moulin Rouge, where, you feel like you're hitting the absinthe and just falling into Paris in the 20s or the teens and just...
or the movie we did on this podcast, Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, yeah.
Which, oh my god, that movie...
I love it so much.
I know, and I was hard on it because I'm like, no one here can really do Shakespeare right. Like, the language is really important, and it doesn't feel like anyone here can do it all the way. But the movie is, like, just a sugar high for 90 minutes, and it's wild.
And beautiful.
And beautiful. But that's, like, messy in a good way.
Yeah.
Annie Hall is not, pixie sticks, rails of absinthe, and just going nutso. It's messy in a... This guy's really, really smart, and he's trying to impart a lot of stuff all at once, but like Alvy the character, it all just kind of gets rambled together in this big, jumbled kind of, I don't know, that's just how it is, these things, these thoughts, and these ideas, and they all just kind of get pushed forward, and we kind of relate to that, because that's kind of how a lot of romances and these... whirlwind loves kind of feel is they're just really messy, but life. You love them. Yeah, it's life.
It feels very, close to reality where this is life, people get mad, you fall in love, and it's just, you feel kind of like, yeah, this could be somebody's actual life story, and it's believable.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of a cheap out because Woody Allen says that he's nothing like his characters in his movies. He's like, me and Alvy Singer have very little in common. And I'm like, bull fucking shit. Like, I feel like all your movies are biographical to one extent or the other. And this movie feels very, this is kind of Woody Allen's experiences and romance.
Yeah.
But, and any other thoughts on Annie Hall before we hit the wrap up?
I mean, obviously there is a lot of humor in this. That's kind of where we get caught up when we're talking about comedies, because we want to, say our favorite lines, because there's a lot of good one-liners, like, the cocaine scene is obviously hilarious. And that wasn't even supposed to be in the movie. That was an accident. He accidentally sneezed into the box and set the cocaine flying everywhere.
Is that why you see Diane Keaton breaking in the back of that scene? Okay.
Yeah, because that wasn't supposed to happen, and I guess they were doing, a test screening, and they put that in there, and the audience just went wild, and he was like, you know what, we gotta keep that in the scene.
It's one of the best gags in the movie. It's one of the best sight gags.
And that's a lot of, things in movies where it's these improvised things or just these accidents that make the movie that much more memorable, because... no one could write that. Yeah. I mean, after seeing it, it's like, oh yeah, that's a killer gag. Someone that, doesn't really do drugs and have them sneezing into the drugs and sending them everywhere. That's funny. And
right after he finds out it's worth like $5,000 and he just blew away $5,000 in this little teacup.
But I mean, I think I really love when he breaks from character and he talks directly to the audience.
The monologue moments?
Definitely the monologue moments, like early on when he brings the film expert, when he's talking about their sex life, and he goes up to different people in the street to figure out, hey, is your sex life normal? What do you guys do in the bedroom? And you have the guy, oh, me and my wife, we use this magic vibrating egg. And he goes, oh, okay, good to hear from the psychopaths. And he keeps, going to people, and they're like, well, what about you? How does it work for you guys? Are you guys happy? And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm incredibly shallow. Yeah, me too. And he goes, finally, we have, a good couple here. But it's just, I love those scenes where he just kind of breaks away from the storyline.
When it becomes full fantasy.
Yes.
I think that is the value of this movie, and makes it feel pretty good, because it's so weird. Because the movie half the time is this very almost grounded melodrama of this guy's wayward romances. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's like, oh, this is like a fucking cartoon. And then it turns into an actual cartoon when he talks about how when he was a kid, he fantasized about the evil witch in Snow White.
And then we jump to, not a claymation, but like an actual
old
cartoon.
school Disney animated vision of little Woody Allen and next to the buxom evil witch evil queen, and it's very funny.
And it ties back to the beginning of the movie where they're late to the movie, and she tells him, "I'm not in a good mood," and he's
Are you on your period?
Yeah, and it's just like, bro, I'm like, so probably from the beginning of time. Men have been saying this, oh, she's in a bad mood. You on your period? And then we get, we come full circle to this scene where he asks the evil queen, "Are you on your period?" And she goes, "I'm a cartoon character. I don't get a period." And it's just like, what is going on here?
But I think that's also a good bit of, I really hope it was conscious writing because it really works for it, where, oh, yeah, that's your first thought when your significant other is in a mood. You think she's on her period. It's like, oh, this guy's a schmuck. This guy's an asshole. And it puts him on the bad foot right out of the gate, puts Diane Keaton right on a good foot out of the gate, and then as the movie goes on, you're like, oh, Alvy is working his way up to you liking him, and, while Annie Hall, Diane Keaton, is just working through, bouncing off of him, and you're like, oh, yeah, of course they would end up together. Of course this works.
Yeah.
Of course they kind of, like, bounce off of each other, because if it started off with them in love and happy or whatever, and Alvy is like our hero out of the gate, and by the end, Annie Hall leaves him, then it's like, oh, that feels so bad for Alvy. But at the end of this, at the final moments, I'm like, good for them. They both made it out of this relationship okay.
And they're friends.
Yeah.
It's not one of these things where it's like, and I never talk to her ever again, and it eats me up inside, and oh, I'm dying. And it's just like, no, They were able to come back together. She moves back to New York. They meet up for lunch every now and then. And it's like, okay, so they've managed to go past all this crap that got in the way of their relationship. And, kind of find resolution.
Yeah. And I think that's why the movie works so well and why so many critics and audiences really liked it, is the ending. And it's like, yeah, because the last part of the movie really kind of sums it all up and makes everything else snap into place. Really, really gets it. Is, what is it? The joke about the man who lays the eggs. Guy goes to a therapist and says, Doctor, you gotta help me. My brother is acting like a chicken. He goes around and he quacks and squawks and everything. And the doctor
Chickens
says,
don't quack though.
or whatever, goes around, and the doctor says, well, bring it in. Okay? We'll get them all fixed up. And he's like, well, I don't know if I should do that. Why not? Because I really need the eggs. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, why does he keep getting into these series of relationships that aren't going to work? Because he wants the love that comes from these relationships. We are social creatures, and we want these relationships, even if they don't work, because we want to, be with each other.
Or, hear me out, Woody Allen was able to see into the future and see that the egg prices were going to be through the roof. You've got a brother at home that could just, pop them out. So you got to complain about your brother, is acting like a chicken, but you got yourself some free eggs.
Got some free eggs. But yeah, so Annie Hall, do you think this deserved to beat Star Wars at the Oscars? This was the moment you weren't waiting for. This is the one you were like, we were going to have to ask it. We opened the episode with it.
In my heart, no, Star Wars should have won because, fuck yeah, Star Wars, I love it.
Yeah.
But, that's not the Academy. The Academy tends to go for...
not genre stuff.
Yeah, not genre stuff. So I can see why this would take it. Mm. And I mean, this movie was nominated for 5 Academy Awards and won 4. Best Picture, Best Actress, Director, and Screenplay. Yeah. So it got, all the heavy hitter awards for that year. And it's like, I can see why. It's all over the place, but there's a lot of substance to this movie. Best Actress, I think, is completely deserved. Oh, absolutely. Diane Keaton is amazing in this movie. Mm-hmm. She started a whole fashion trend with just, her costuming, which was her clothing. Her own clothing. And
the Manic Pixie Dream Girl chic. That was the fashion trend.
Whatever, yeah, or just, Annie Hall, but it's like, I love, those little details about movies where, oh yeah, the actors in the movie, that was their wardrobe, and it kind of makes you feel like...
You're looking at the person.
Yeah, you're not looking at a character on a script. You're actually looking at the person. And the fact that Diane Keaton's name really is Diane Hall.
Which is kind of weird.
Which is a trip, yeah. So it's just kind of like, okay, that's really making the story feel more real than fantasy.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the movie that I think really works, is it feels very relatable, even when it's in its fantastical moments.
Yeah.
And, say what you want about Woody Allen, he made a pretty good movie.
He's made a lot of great movies. Don't agree with his life choices, but just on artwork, he's made a lot of memorable movies. Some fantastical characters. And, I ended up liking the movie a lot more than I expected to.
I think that gets us to the point. Final thoughts on Annie Hall.
I give it 2 strong thumbs up. Highly recommend you watch it. It was a little bit difficult for me to find it right now. I mean, granted, later.
Streaming and all that stuff.
Yeah, everything.
Right after we release this episode, it's going to come to Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, YouTube.
I know it's on Hulu, and I was able to borrow a friend's password so I could watch the movie. No, it's on their...
Because Hulu is okay with us sharing passwords.
They are Netflix.
You hear that, Netflix? You hear what you're doing?
No, but what pissed me off was, yeah, it's on Hulu, but it's on the premium subscription. So I was just like, okay. So I really had to take extra steps to find it. But if you can, highly recommend you watch it. It's a fun movie. Funny movie. And yeah, it's a good time, even though, some drama in it.
Yeah, I honestly can still recommend Annie Hall. I think it is a good movie. It's a movie that I think if you can vibe with this Woody Allen aesthetic and this kind of humor, it really pays off, and the guy can really make a good film. Like, the movie does just feel good, and when you watch it, you're gonna see a lot of comedy, romantic films, like, echo out of this.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Noah Baumbach takes a lot of cues from Annie Hall, and I really do think that this is one of those movies people should watch if you're going through, your greatest movies of all time watch-throughs or something. This is probably on your 100, maybe your 250.
Is it on AFI Top 100?
It is. It is on the AFI Top 100, I think I can look behind me, I got the thing. 37. It came right there. 37.
37, okay.
Yeah, it was right under Snow White and above Bridge over the River Kwai.
What are the odds of that it's right next to Snow White and we have the evil queen in this movie? Again, did he predict the future?
I call it poetic. Poetic.
Interesting.
But 2 thumbs up for me. Would recommend it. Give it a watch. If you want to watch another good movie from Woody Allen, Blue Jasmine's a very good movie, and that's a really recent one.
Midnight in Paris.
Yeah, Manhattan is a pretty black and white movie.
It is.
Very pretty. But with that, what are we going to be watching next week?
Next week, we're going to be ending Romantic Comedy Month, but we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be jumping into the teens.
The modern era.
The modern era. We're going to be talking about a Romeo and a Juliet kind of love. We're going to be talking about Warm Bodies.
Yeah, this movie, I remember being advertised whenever it was coming out, and I thought it was very weird, because, like, romantic comedies kind of died once, in, like, the 2010s, right? Like, romantic comedies stopped being, like, viable, like, big budget, like, AAA studio stuff.
Yeah, and, with this, it's celebrating its 10th anniversary this month. Mm. And it's like, what better way to revive romantic comedies with the undead?
Exactly. And hopefully by the time this comes out, we should have our bonus episode locked in.
Yes.
And bonus episode we'll be recording at some point with our good friend Alex Leto. And it'll be about the movie The Lobster starring Colin Farrell.
Yes. So we're excited to talk about The Lobster. We're excited to talk about Warm Bodies. A lot going on at the film club right now.
But if you wanted to listen to those, where can they go?
Well, if you want to listen to...
Having a good time with it?
I almost had the spiel.
La-dee-da.
La-dee-da.
It's okay, boo. It's pretty neat.
What are you, 12 with neat?
Come on, give us your spiel. Give us your spiel.
Okay. If you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, and YouTube.
You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube, where you can find video versions of this podcast that hopefully won't always be my slideshows. We're trying here.
But we love the slideshows.
But not always. And you can go there, like, comment, subscribe. We're going to try and release more video content there. But if you wanted to follow us on social media, where can they go?
You can find us on Instagram at the Film Club Podcast, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, trivia, and our random adventures.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.